Now, you're an active duty service member, right? Mm-hmm. How long have you been in the Marine Corps?
Over 18 years.
And how many homes have you how many veterans have you helped purchase properties and sell properties?
Approximately so far about 40 or so.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tony Glenn checking in with the SITREP podcast, and we got Bruno Nascimento today. Yo, let me tell you, we're about to unpack this thing today. So what we're going to be talking about is all things real estate and how to VA loan like an animal. So, Bruno, my man, we go long way.
Indeed.
Right?
Yes, we do.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, so I met Tony back on MCRD San Diego. That was like 2012 or so. Mm-hmm. And, I check in. I'm a brand new drill instructor, still trying to figure out where I was at in my life and where I was even at in the world, right? And then I come across a parade deck, and then there's the battalion drill master, Gunny Glenn over there. Or no, Staff Sergeant Glenn at the time, mm-hmm. right, over there. And then, you probably blasted me for something. And then, but it was, learned about, the drill and everything else on the depot, kind of how things were. And then from there, we just ventured off into, getting to know you. And the rest was kind of history. It was fast forward a couple of years. I had a really good friend of mine, Anthony Chenette, right? Mm-hmm. That is a really good friend of yours. He reached out to me about, hey, real estate, this and this, I'm kind of planted the seed, right? I started going through the process myself and buying my first home. And then I was like, man, I'm learning a lot about the process, learning a lot about how this works. And what would be super awesome is if I could teach this to people that were in my shoes, mm-hmm. right? And then, Shenette placed that bug in my ear. Eventually, I took a couple years and I started to get into it. And then eventually, I went and reached out to you, kind of kept up with everything that you were doing with Remax. And it was one of those where it was like seeing you do the things that you were doing. And it was like, man, I know that guy, I know him, right? Mm-hmm. So as you were progressing and as you were, opening up Remax and doing everything else, it was one of those things where, it's kind of like when you have a Marine doing something, you feel as if you're doing it with them, even though you're not. You're at the time, I think this was 2017 when you opened up Remax, right? Uh-huh. And man, I was in Okinawa, right? And I was,
that's crazy. So you were over there watching.
Yeah. I was watching, but it was like I felt like I was here because you were keeping everybody up to date with everything that was going on, step by step, day in and day out. So I felt like I was doing it with you. And then at the time, right, I had taken my classes. I was scheduled to take the exam, but I was overseas. And then the first chance that I got to come back to the States, schedule the exam and take it, I went and I took it. And
that's cool, man. That's cool. What is it that why are you doing real estate right now?
Because I found something that gave me the same self-satisfaction that I get from being a Marine, right? And it was where having the ability to be able to help people, right? And I think that for me, right, I was given a really good opportunity, right, of reaching that financial freedom or that financial stability. And it took me a long time for me to set myself up, right? So, I was in base housing. A gunny, E7 in the Marines. Mm-hmm. Living in base housing for 14 years before I bought my first house. Right.
Oh, okay.
And it was one of those things where when I bought the house, and I was trying to figure out, right, the advantages of home ownership and everything else and everything that came with it. Right. So, 2 years later, I sold that house. For $80,000 more than what I bought it, right? And that was stuff where I'm like, man, coming across money like that, right? That was stuff that we were doing in 2009 when we were re-enlisting in Afghanistan, right? For 4 years, agreeing to deploy with a unit for a minimum of 2. to come across any sort of large amounts of money. And I was like, man, like, surely there's an easier way of making more money like that.
Yeah.
Where it was just all, building equity and things that were, at one point, they were a foreign concept to me, right? That once I got introduced to it and I kind of learned it, right, it benefited me and my family. And then it kind of inspired me to be able to say, man, like, there's a need, right? There's a gap that I want to be able to be a part of the movement that you have started, that I'm like, man, this is a potential way for us to bridge that gap, right? Because it's the information that for us as servicemen, it's there, right? And ultimately the responsibility falls on us to educate ourselves, right? But as a service member, you're so caught up in accomplishing the mission that a lot of times we put ourselves way, way, way in the back.
That's true. One of the reasons why I had started this movement with Constance is that we saw there was a huge lack of information about the VA entitlement. It was so many people telling us false information. So we led with education versus trying to make money. And I think that's kind of how the movement got started. And I remember when you hit me up and you told me that you wanted to do real estate. And shout out to T-Cat, Anthony Chanette. We call him T-Cat. So shout out to my man. And he told me, he said, hey, yo, I got my man Bruno.
Nah, I was like, hey, yo.
T-Cat, we love you, man. That's my brother. I always say he sound like DMX, but he told me about you and he said, hey, this is my dude. And it was at a time to where we were kind of going through growing pains, right? Mm-hmm. But when we brought you on the team, you hit the ground running. And I remember the first person that you sent to us was Brother Glasspool, right? Indeed. So before he was licensed, he called me up and he told me he had a person, and then we ended up getting him going. He ended up purchasing a property out here in Oceanside, and then now tell us about what he's doing right now.
Yeah, so right now he's stationed up there at SOI, and he hit me up recently these past few days, talking about, hey, how do I pull out equity in my house? What are some of the options that I have, right? Things that now I'm fully equipped to be able to help him out with, right?
Right.
But just to think about how small of a circle, right, and how small not only the world, but how much smaller the Marine Corps is, right? Where it was like, that was one of my Marines that I had, in my unit that reached out to me. And then when I saw the need that he was looking at purchasing a home, right, I was taking classes. I wasn't licensed yet. And I was like, nah, man, you know what? And at the time, I like when I wanted to do, I'm like, hold on a second, just wait. Give me like 3 more weeks so I can get licensed, so I can help you out. But then it was one of those, I'm like, man, it's not about me, right? It's about getting him taken care of. And I was like, man, like, who else am I going to push him over to than, to you? So then that's when I reached out and I'm like, man, I got this guy. He's ready to go. You hooked him up, and then, we fast forward. We were doing the backpack drive. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Glasspool showed up.
He did.
He came over here, got some backpacks for his kids and stuff like that. And, we just, stayed in contact over, at this time it's like over 2 years now. But now, here he is, right? He is, a younger Marine, right? So you figure as a sergeant, this guy is doing things and is in a position that me as a gunny, I was nowhere near. I didn't have that opportunity because I didn't know about it.
Right. So do you believe that your shortcomings in not purchasing earlier are changing? You're now an advocate since now you're a multiple home owner. Do you believe that you're basically bridging the gap in between building financial wealth for veterans using home ownership?
Yes, absolutely. Right. And not only do I do that, right, that's what I use to help fuel my fire, right? It's at the end of the day, right, and like the little tidbits, right, that I picked up from you as I got started and as everything else was unraveling, where it's like at the end of the day, it's all about building relationships and helping others. And for me, to be able to have somebody else be in that position, that's everything to me, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's one of those where it's kind of like as a parent, right, where you always want better for your kids, right?
Yes.
And then you figure that's really kind of a trait that we just have as human, period, right? that is ultimately what most, well, I don't know about most, but that is, it's a trait that a lot of people have, right? People who turn around and selflessly volunteer for community service, right?
Yep.
That's one of the things where they're not getting anything out of it other than self-satisfaction by knowing and understanding that they are making a difference by helping in some way, shape, or form, right? So for me, it was something where I'm like, if I can be really knowledgeable in something, how can I turn around and make this something that other veterans and other Marines, sailors, soldiers, airmen, whomever, how can they benefit from my knowledge that I have?
Right.
And then that's what, like the moment that I saw that we had, the nonprofit, the Veteran Homeowners Club, where I'm like, man, this is it. You know what I mean? Like, we have the opportunity to come on base, to come to the units, right? Leverage the networks that we have with the people that we know to be able to help other servicemen. I'm like, I'm sold, right? Like,
it makes sense. Let me ask you a question. Now, you're an active duty service member, right? Mm-hmm. How long have you been in the Marine Corps?
Over 18 years.
And how many how many veterans have you helped purchase properties and sell properties?
Approximately so far about 40 or so.
How do you balance your time? Out of curiosity.
It's funny, right? So, and
now before he gets into this, I definitely want to say something. Look at me right now. Now check this out. Now, when Bruno started selling houses and I started seeing his closing gifts, he made me step my game up. When he first started, he was giving like Bentleys, Range Rovers, and cruisers and all types of stuff. And I'm like, my little gift basket can't compete, man. So I'm like, man, he actually, he's one of the people that made me step my video game up. And that's part of the reason, real talk, this is raw. You hear it from me firsthand. That's why I'm doing a podcast right now, because they told me that my MySpace channel was not working. But anyways, so how do you balance, doing the Marine Corps and also, being a real estate professional?
It's really, it's all about finding the balance, right? And I think that one of the things that I've benefited from the Marine Corps, right, in particular with my special duty assignment as a drill instructor, right, one of the things that I learned there was, how do you manage to do so many things in such a condensed period of time, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you have the time or you don't. Like, what will happen is this. Right? So if that's going to happen, it's on you to figure out how you're going to make it happen, right? So I took what I learned, right, back then, and I just apply that to the day-to-day, right? Because it facilitated my time management skills, right? So in short, it would be time management, right?
Okay.
The longer response would be where it's trying to balance everything by being really good at each thing that you do, right? So what I do as a realtor doesn't compromise my ability to be a Marine.
Indeed. Right? Yeah, I love that.
Because it's something where I have to be the best Marine I could be, right? Regardless of anything else that I do, because, when I sign on the dotted line, that was a commitment that I made, right? I took the oath, and that is a commitment. So that comes before everything else, right? And we say that, loosely, right? Because we as men, we are husbands, we are fathers, there are other roles that we are expected to fill, right? And it's one of those where, what do I do, right? I find ways that I can better manage all these things simultaneously, right? So if it means that I can try to inspire my own wife to go and get her license, right?
That's right. Shout out to Jess. She just got her real estate license, and now it's a team effort. If they can compete, they're going to be competing against each other. Who can negotiate the best deals?
Yep.
But you said approximately 38 to 40 deals that you put into.
Yeah, so far.
And you've been licensed for 2 years, correct?
2 years, just a little over.
Man, that's crazy. So, I mean, if you do the math, y'all, 40 people, 40 homeowners, people who have served in the armed forces, that are now homeowners and invested in their financial future through real estate. The question that I have for you is, what is the funniest situation that you've ever had making veteran homeowners?
So, And if I had $1 for every funny story, right? But I think one of the ones that stick out to me the most was when I was helping out a Marine, and we were showing a house in Vista, okay? And, you know, for those of you out there who know a thing or two about the areas of Southern California, right? You know, within proximity of Camp Pendleton, you know, Vista, it's hit or miss, right?
Right.
You have really good portions of Vista, and then you have the really questionable portions of Vista. The price point that we were looking at was kind of like too good for Vista. So I already knew it was going to be in the questionable part of Vista, right? And so I had an appointment with the agent. I show up, right? And then, like I tell all my clients, I'm like, hey, do me a favor, stay in the car. Let me go and make sure the house is good first. So then I'll give you the green light for you to come out. So I walk inside the house. You know, I'm knocking on the door, and it's open. So nobody says anything. You know, I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. But I open it up, and man, when I walk into this house, right, the house is completely like nearly tore down, right? There was this like super big air mattress in the middle of the living room.
Oh, you got a squatter.
Right? And then you had this lady, right? Incredibly heavy set lady, sitting there, right? With this like cigarette, right? And then like pounding this beer, right? And I'm like, so at the time I was brand spanking new. This is my first client, right?
Oh no.
So I don't even know how to handle these situations yet. And I'm like, hi, hello, I am a real estate agent. And I go and I'm like, hey, I have an appointment to show the house. And she's like, well, it's okay. You can bring him on in. Right. And I'm like, oh my God. So, you know, mind you, the client, like his wife is pregnant at the time. So I don't know what to do with my hands. Right. And I'm, you know, so we show him the house and stuff like that. And needless to say, I mean, the house was, you know, super destroyed. And so that was how I learned, right, that when I show houses, the first thing that I do is I tell my clients, I'm like, hey, guys, you know, disclaimer is that every house that you're seeing, it's not my house, right? So I have no idea what we are potentially running into, right? So that was probably the craziest thing so far, you know, that we walked in. But you know what? Like a champ, I show the house and I pretended as if there was nothing wrong.
Yeah,
right?
I've had some crazy stories too, man. I have a couple of more questions for you, and then we'll wrap this up, brother. What advice, is it a good time to buy right now? What do you think? Do you think the market is going to correct or no?
You know, and I think that's probably the question that I get asked the most by a lot of people, right? And that's the beauty of it, right? Where if we're talking about the demographics that we usually focus on, which are, you know, the veterans and stuff like that, there is never really a bad time to buy. The only bad time to buy is yesterday, right? Because things will always appreciate. And I think that the properties within Southern California, if anything else during COVID, all it did was kind of solidified how strong the market is out here.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me unpack this, right? Did y'all just hear that? Listen, you make money when you buy houses, not when you sell them, okay? That's basically what you said, right?
Absolutely.
So I've been telling people this for a long time. If you get tax-free BAH, there's no reason why you shouldn't buy, because it's the long play. You're not getting into real estate to buy it and sell it right away. Exactly. It's the long game, right? And using leveraging the tax-free housing allowance in order to take advantage of that tax-free benefit, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, and then a lot of people that were waiting, because I had some people that were telling me, "Oh, I'm going to wait." Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Last year, the houses in Riverside County and San Diego County went up an average of 20%. So you do the math. You take $500,000 and you add 20% on top of that. That's how much money that people lost waiting. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. That's really, really good, man.
And that's the thing with people trying to time the market. Like, you can't time the market, right?
Whether
it's stocks, whether it's real estate investments. Like, all you can do is you can get in and you can make educated decisions,
sure,
right? To be able to mitigate as much risk as possible, right? But that's where well, right now everyone's like, oh, but it's a seller's market because, there's so many things that are selling. Like, yeah, sure, right? But it's a seller's market. Why? Because you have so many people that realize that the interest rates are so low, so they are jumping in front to try to be able to buy the houses that they couldn't buy before because the interest rates were higher, right? So even when, whether there is a correction or anything else, right, ultimately you are never going to be in a position to where it's a negative approach, right? Because it's like, well, what do you do if the market crashes? Well, I mean, it's simple. You just don't sell the house.
And put tenants in it.
Exactly. Well, it may not be the best time for you to sell the house because, again, you can't control, the market. You can't time the market. You can't control the economy. So if you understand that, it's just knowing how to mitigate the risk. But ultimately, you have the asset that belongs to you, right? It's something tangible, something that you can do something with, and you have options, whether it's sell it, right now, it may be the best time for you to sell it, or it may be the best time for you to put some renters in it, and then you go and you get that, positive cash flow and passive income and all these other little things, all this terminology that, all you got to do is you crack a book open, right? And it's, the knowledge is there for the taking.
Well, Bruno, I do want to say it's been a blast. You become a part of my family. My kids love you and your family, and it's been a really good ride. And I look forward to many, many things to come. And I just appreciate you being here with us and continuing to expand our movement and magnify what it is that you're doing. I do have one request. How can people reach you?
All right, so people can reach me easily at my phone number, right, which is 786-348-9470. You can also find me on Facebook or Instagram at Nas Realtor. That's Nas Realtor. And or on my website, makinghomeowners.com.
Hey, Bruno, thank you very much. I really appreciate you. Hey, cheers, brother.
Cheers.
To many more homeowners. Hey, this is Anthony DeGlan checking out with Remax Liberty and the Veteran Homeowners Club on the SITREP podcast. Hey, stay tuned for more information to come on how to VA loan like an animal. Hey, VA home loans out, baby. Let's go.